All right, so we're live, not so live, but semi-live.
Live-ish.
We're in Memorial, Houston. This is Brandon B. Dixon. You're tuned in to the Power of Ownership podcast. And I got my special guest here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Let's start all the way to my extreme right.
Hi guys, it's Stephen Contreras again here on the Power of Ownership podcast. Excited to be here today. And this is our guest here, Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott Smith. I'm a guest.
Well, you got to give them a little bit point. Tell them what you do, what's your background, what's your affiliations, the whole night.
The whole thing.
What happens is, people.
New people.
New people.
Sorry.
First time tuning in.
Yeah, first time tuning in. I apologize, guys. I'm Stephen Contreras. I'm a geologist here in Houston, Texas. I'm also a Freemason, 32nd degree in the Scottish Rite, York Rite Mason. I love being on podcasts, talking philosophy and ownership, and trying to be bettering ourselves each and every day. So that's kind of what I'm about.
Sweet. I'm Scott Smith. I'm engineering systems manager for a company that manufactures frac equipment here in the Houston area. Yes, I'm one of them. Hey, so we could probably talk about, pumping the ground full of concrete
it's kind of important.
Yeah, it's kind
See how important intros are? You can learn something new.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason. I'm not a member of the York Rite or any other appended body.
All right, and people that's first tuning in, I'm Brandon B. Dixon, published author, serial entrepreneur, mortgage broker, and podcaster and YouTuber as of recently. I also am a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason at the Houston Scottish Rite. So as you can see, the common theme, and that's kind of going to go into our first topic here, but for those who are first tuning in, I'll give you a little background on the premise of the show. It started off as ownership of just houses and properties and businesses, but it then expanded to ownership of yourself, the mind, body, and soul. So we're kind of bridging the gap between the esoteric and the metaphysical with the business world and the practical world and this your everyday life. With that being said, one of the things that was on my mind this week, just talking with my brother here, Brother Scott, he is a deist, similar to what the Founding Fathers were.
I am.
A lot of people have the misconception that the Founding Fathers were Christian, which is incorrect.
Well, there were some Christians there, but there were a lot of them that were deists. Yeah.
Right. So I want to get a little bit more familiar, this outside of reading, I want to hear in your words, what is a deist and how does that tie into Freemasonry? And the second part of the question would be, since our founding fathers, a lot of our founding fathers were deists and Freemasons, how would they feel about today's modern climate? Like, how would they feel if they were to look at the country, the state of the country today? How would they feel? How would you think they would feel being in their shoes, since you're kind of similar?
Well, okay. I'll address the first bit.
First part first.
Okay, I'm a deist. I believe that I believe in a God. I believe that because I do listen to a lot of atheists, and they will tell you straight up that deists are just lazy atheists that won't commit. That's not true. I do believe that God is an actual entity. I believe that, and you will hear me refer to God as it, not he or she, but it, because, we won't get into that.
Lack of better terms.
Well, no, it's just like, it's okay. If God is an entity unto itself, then why does it need a gender?
Correct.
So it's all being, right?
Well, yeah, it is being. I do actually believe that the entity that we call God, and that's a title, not really a name. You will also hear me refer to God as the Word. Because, well, again, that ties into Freemasonry and actually my beliefs before I became Freemason. But God created this universe. I believe it's a pocket universe. I believe there are quite potentially other universes out there with different laws of physics and that sort of stuff. But God, what we call God, created this pocket universe and the entities within it, whether it's just here on Earth or other planets or whatnot, as a means by which to actually know it and understand it better. So all things, I don't necessarily believe that religion is the source of morality. I believe that God is the source of morality, and God, because I believe in part of this universe, God defined the laws of nature as a means for understanding itself and as a means of morality. So that which is moral is natural, and that which is natural is moral.
Okay.
And yeah, so and I can dig in deeper on that if you want me to. But,
Now, how does this, because all of us are three separate backgrounds. As far as belief, I don't really on air get into my beliefs. As far as I'm beyond beliefs. I'm kind of into the fruition state, but with three separate backgrounds. But how does this tie into Freemasonry? For those that don't know, is this an overall Freemason thing?
No.
Talk to the novice.
Okay, I don't speak for Freemasons, and anything I say is not affiliated or endorsed by any lodge, Grand Lodge, or anyone living or dead. They are my personal beliefs. When I did say that I refer to God as the Word, that does have a Masonic tie-in. It does. Again, I won't utter the word because I don't think it's appropriate to do so. Not because it's written in the Ten Commandments that you don't say the Lord's name in vain and all that stuff. I just think it's appropriate. It's like if somebody kept saying Scott, and I go, what? Scott, what? So I don't do that. I don't use God's name lightly.
Right.
So yeah, but as far as the tie into Freemasonry goes, the only thing I can give you is that all religions are welcome as long as you have, or all beliefs are welcome, as long as you believe in a higher power. And
right.
I believe that there is a God that created the universe, but it's remote and it doesn't tinker with things. So
before you tackle the second part, and then we'll chime in after he tackles the second part. That's when we're gonna open the floor up.
Okay, sounds good.
Just brushing up on the show, doing my research for the show. I didn't know. I did a little research on deism. And it's different than theism.
it is.
But deists say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, just doing my research, I'm just doing a quick research, that they believe that, the Almighty or God that set everything in motion doesn't interfere with everything.
That's the mechanistic view of the universe.
Right.
That basically it's a great machine that spins, and that goes back to Newton. And then that gets into this huge argument of because you've got different branches of deism, just like you have different branches of everything. You've got some that believe there is no free will because God set everything in motion.
Right.
Everything just behaves according to its nature, which I agree with, but we as humans have dual natures. We have our animal nature and then we have our higher nature, which allows us to and requires us to use free will. God gave us that so that we could actually understand it, or not, as our lives and our experiences dictate.
Gotcha. Now, to the second part before we open up. Being that you had some similar views with the founding fathers.
Thomas Paine.
Let's flash forward to 2019 now.
What would they think?
What would you think that they would think of the current climate, current state of? Do you think this is what they meant for entrepreneurs? Do you think this is what they meant for free enterprise? Do you think this is what they had in mind?
Do you actually see any free enterprise? That's
why I'll open it up. Okay. Explain. Let the audience know. Explain.
You sent me the list. I did that with my mind.
Right.
Talk me no further.
Well, we probably need to explain it a little bit more anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I did that just to bring up Raymond's book.
Right.
Again, coincidence.
Explain.
I was thinking about the questions that you sent me, and I go back to the TV series Bewitched. There were two episodes. Where Samantha goes back in time, and somehow somebody screws up, and they accidentally bring George Washington back in one episode, and Ben Franklin back in another episode. This was the 60s. Things were different, a lot different than they are now, and things were a little bit more on even keel. And then they sent them back to their own times. I think if that happened today, they would go back and say, all right, George is right, people have no business ruling themselves. I hate to say that, but we've gotten to this point in our society where I'm going to hit Jurassic Park as a reference. We have all of this technology, but we're not ready to use it yet. We're too immature as a species, and we're too selfish as a species to be able to rule ourselves. Because while we want to rule ourselves, which is great, because again, this podcast is about self-ownership. We also think we own everybody else. And that's part of the social programming that has occurred in the last 40 years, whereby we have become our brother's keepers, whether they freaking like it or not.
Right.
And
you're tapping into the point I had. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and so no, I think if Jefferson or Paine came back, no, I think they would go back to their own time and say, "Bugger it, we're out."
Right.
Yeah.
Don't let's not start it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open up the floor. Go ahead, brother.
or just
Steve.
or just like I think they would be very disappointed in the choices
That's
that
one way of putting it.
of how society has evolved, right? Like, because what the founding fathers were doing was something greater than themselves.
Yes.
Something that, like, as a people, we can't even kind of comprehend the greatness that they were trying to establish. Something that has never been done before. Forget about all if it was morally correct or not or anything like, but the idea of what they were trying to build was something better for society themselves.
Yes.
Right? And I think they were able to achieve that. They were able to set up this new found land in a place that has never been done before in a long time, a new continent where they can set up cities, build roads, spread the knowledge of ideas across anyone who was listening. And then after that, they were able to sit down and lay down the foundation for trying to make America the greatest country on the planet, in which today, technically, it really is, but is it, though? Like, we have really fallen back. We have started to rely too much on technology. We're losing the social interactions. And if they came through a time machine right now, they would say, man, we messed up.
No, but see, that's the thing. I don't think they were setting out to build the greatest country or nation in the history of mankind. They came over here, well, their actual fathers and parents came over here because they were trying to get away from the divine rights of monarchs.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Sure.
believed, because it was the zeitgeist of the period, in the divine rights of individuals to determine their own existence. And they set up a system by which individuals could. But they assumed everybody would remain in that same school of thought. It did not occur to them that nature is cyclical and that they would fall back to a serf mentality where people would actually believe in the divine rights of monarchs because they wanted to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
It never, and I love the founding fathers, all of them, for their thoughts, except maybe Adams, because I like John Adams, but he was kind of a
And
despot.
Hamilton.
And don't get me started on Hamilton. We will not go there. But it never occurred to them that we would slouch towards serfdom. That would be how people wanted to be taken care of. And yeah.
Let me chime in on
Okay, cool.
two parts real quick. First, just to chime in on what Steven said, that I definitely disagree with this was a unfound continent. There were actually
I know.
there were actually people here
For a long time.
for a long time.
Mormons.
Yeah, but
That's
it-
Joseph Smith.
Thousands of years before that.
the general
That actually helped put together the actual Constitution and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a different debate.
I totally agree with you.
Right,
by
so-
the way.
But there was already cities and stuff that was already here
Uh-huh.
for thousands of years before, so it was not undiscovered.
Yeah.
You know, so but my point is, I think, and again, I always do the express verbal notification. I think this is my opinion.
The views of Brandon Dixon
Right.
do not necessarily represent those of the Grand Lodge of Texas.
Right. So I think what they would say is that I think they would be disappointed in the actual, should I say, oomph or gumption of the everyday man. So look at the word social security. I'm paying for you to secure me socially. So stuff like that, I think they would. The ideas, what Stephen said, what they had, the original idea for it, I could come from nothing and create whatever I want, which in essence is Freemasonry,
And self-ownership.
right? And self-ownership. What it has morphed to become, and it's going to go to our second actual point with the private sector. It's become, not only am I going to be selfish if I do get here, and I'm gonna exclude other people, and I'm going to kind of keep it the dream to this exclusive club, you know, and try to keep this so-called power instead of liberties for all, liberties and justice for all. So that it kind of moved to that. It kind of became cliquish. There's these cliques, and morphed into the private sector. Not only I made it, but let me block other people that try to make it.
No, your point about protectionism is well taken, and they didn't see that coming. They believed
Right.
again everybody was on the same page.
They had this idea of a melting pot, like Egypt, like ancient Egypt and Rome was,
The
and
Great
they didn't
Lighthouse.
see the xenophobia from within.
Yeah. But they should have. I'm sorry.
Right, you know what
They
I'm saying?
really should have. There were some contradictions in the Constitution. We all know that.
Right. So,
You know.
but they, and that's what it's kind of become. It's kind of become, all right, I'm going to represent for my clique. There's teams within teams.
Yes.
And it was all supposed to be one team. It's supposed to be free for everybody to, if you had the gumption, you had the initiative, that you could go ahead and make it. Now, it's still like that, but they've made it to where the private sector could form systems
or cliques, right?
or cliques against other people to block them out.
That's because despite the Enlightenment, despite the new thought of man as the individual sovereign over himself, because I mentioned earlier that man has two natures. We have our animal nature, we have our higher nature. Our animal nature is something we always have to struggle with. And that struggle that you just outlined, the cliquishness, isn't necessarily, that's not a higher man function. That is our animal nature.
That's animal, yeah.
Where we have to stick with our own kind in order
Or put
for
a
our
quote,
own
yeah.
kind to survive.
Right.
But what they fail to realize, and again, there are contradictions in the Constitution,
Right.
where some people were less than others,
Right.
and it doesn't just we're not just talking about slavery. We'll take eminent domain for example. You have the freedom to own your own land. You are your king on your own. You are sovereign on your own property, unless we decide we need it for somebody else.
Right.
And and it's these contradictions that have actually led to the problem. But going back to what you were saying about the cliquishness, we have to genetically, we are predisposed to hate things that are different than ourselves, and they forgot that. You can disagree with it.
I don't know about genetically.
Yeah,
I think we're socially programmed.
No, I think it's my personal opinion is it's genetic.
Well, everything kind of you do unlock DNA through experience. Your experiences go through your RNA, then it gets transported to your DNA.
Right.
So I guess after some time, it can become that. But when did it start though?
It started early on when we were tribal.
Right.
Okay, the other tribes have to be kept down,
Right,
because
I guess, yeah.
it's about the battle of resources. And
Yes,
belief
yes.
that resources are
The
scarce.
reptilian brain, the survival instinct.
You got to protect what's
Yeah,
mine. And my people, the people
Right.
that are like me are mine, but the people that
Gotcha.
are different are not. Screw them. We're gonna
Gotcha.
kill them and take their crap.
But I think the whole goal was to try to. It was the foundation stones of trying to build a world that.
Oh no, I
is
agree.
not like that.
Yeah, and
Right.
but that's because they forgot, and that's all.
And,
Right.
the timing for the whole situation is they wrote the Constitution in a way so it would live forever, and they know times do change, right?
Yeah, they did.
And so, because certain aspects of that time period you couldn't get away from, but they knew in the future it would happen.
Well, think of the splendor of the world that they were creating. What they thought the world was, where they were. My God, we've arrived at this point where we don't have divine rights and monarchs. We are all our own kings. It can only get better because, good God, no one's going to go backwards.
Yeah.
But they didn't know.
Right.
People try not to go.
Yeah, but they assumed that no one would. Why would they? That's dumb.
Well, just to touch on one more point before we go to the next, I want to really clear out and really exhaust this point about they didn't see the laziness.
No, it didn't occur to them. Ben Franklin himself, that the lazy should be made uncomfortable in their poverty,
Right.
So that they wouldn't be.
So they didn't see that. Also, what it's become a vicarious experience country.
Yeah.
As of now, with the technology, we all live vicarious lives.
Mm-hmm.
We watch people having fun on TV instead of actually going out and having fun.
Yes, we do.
We actually represent. We actually pick delegates to actually vote for us.
Yeah.
Instead of actually casting our own votes, we have representatives for us.
Yeah.
We actually have. We watch other people's adventures on movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all a vicarious relationship or a vicarious experience that we're experiencing.
Well,
I don't think they've seen that coming.
In defense of those people that watch all of these vicarious experiences, some of us got to make a living, and I don't have time to go have adventures. I got to feed myself.
But you should be able to.
You should be able to, but who's going to pay for it? Because ain't nothing in the universe free.
Right.
Not yet, right?
But do you think they seen that coming? As far as my thing is, what I'm fighting right now, my particular mission is the fight of being average, the average Joe mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a lot of us, Generation X on down, are content with being average. They're content with the 40 hours. As long as I have enough to pay my bills and go on vacation for 2 weeks out of the year, I'm good.
Yeah.
that's become the norm, and average is the new failure in my book. So how do we start to break away from that and get back to the original?
When you say we, who are we?
Meaning like my kind, like meaning that the entrepreneurs, the motivational guys, the guys that want to actually see the economy shift.
Y'all will never be the norm. I'm sorry, that's not human nature.
Right.
Every stride we've had as a people has been led by just a small group of people who
That's
have propelled it forward.
That's how it
and
always
they've
is.
and they've drug everybody else with them.
That's
and it sucks.
Right.
Because I'm a huge fan of Ayn Rand. I believe in the Ubermensch.
Right.
Not like in the full extent of that, but I mean, I wanted to be a billionaire industrialist, but not everybody is qualified to be a billionaire industrialist.
Right.
Have you read Atlas Shrugged?
I haven't.
Okay, you need
I
to.
know who it is.
Okay. If you get a chance to read it, I'll give you a copy of it. There's one character in there that Eddie Willers, he's an employee, and that's all he'll ever be.
Gotcha.
But he's the best damn employee he can be because that's all he's capable of, and that's all right.
Right.
A lot of people overlook that part of Hein's writings. It's okay to be not necessarily average, but the best you can be with what you've got. I will never be a good trumpet player.
Gotcha.
Ever. It's just not who I am.
Right,
And I was a serial entrepreneur, and you know what? I sucked at it.
Right.
Which is, why I'm an employee now, and I'm okay with that.
And
Gotcha.
everyone has their roles.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Right.
And you can't expect everybody to be you.
Gotcha.
you know?
Gotcha.
And because that's not how it works. It'd be awesome if it were.
Gotcha.
But then if everybody is you, then everybody's average.
So the Star Trek world is definitely a fantasy, more science fantasy than science.
No, I don't think
Right.
so at all, because everybody had, if we're talking next generation, where they didn't have currency anymore, that trade was not, and financial advancement was not part of the goal. It was this huge socialist society.
Well, it kind of contradicts what you're saying, because in that particular
I didn't
world,
write Star Trek.
right? What Gene Roddenberry's world was, everybody was trying to be the best and
Yeah.
maximize themselves.
But for themselves, not for profit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, profit.
Well, my point is that what we get a lot of now, and it's become a norm, is that I'm not even going to try.
No, God, no. I just want what I just.
I just want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting
No.
in the Star Trek world, and I'm a huge fan as well.
Yeah.
Me too.
They're all trying to outdo themselves
Yeah.
for the betterment of humanity.
I don't know if it's for the betterment or the betterment of humanity, or if it's for themselves.
I
think it's for themselves.
I don't sense the ego there. I sense it's for, because they're so willing to lay down.
Captain Kirk, Will Riker. You telling me there's no ego there?
No.
There's a little bit of ego
There's-
but
yeah.
I'm watching the news series and stuff like that, and Pike and all those guys are willing to lay down their life at the snap of a hat.
Yeah, but that's part of the social programming that's going on right now.
I
So,
think,
Right.
I think there's a big difference between ego and confidence. Once you have eliminated your ego, your confidence is the only thing you have left. And then from the outside looking in, that confidence will always be judged by an egotistical point of view, because they do
Right.
not know.
Okay.
They don't know.
But-
They're trying to push
Yeah.
their views on you.
But without
Gotcha.
ego, you're nothing. If you eliminate your ego, that's self-abnegation.
I mean, it's always
You know.
there. It's the battle tested over time.
Right, right.
But you can eliminate your ego to it has no influence on your
Correct,
daily life.
correct.
You're living above yourself.
Yeah,
at
that
that
doesn't sound like any fun to me at all.
point. Sometimes it's not fun.
I'm sorry, I may say I'm a middle-aged guy working in an office, but
Right.
I'm a huge egoist.
Yeah.
Switching gears for
Yeah.
a second, and it kind of relates to the little point that I made up. And how do you see actual this private sector? Are we ready, to control everything, or?
When you say we, who are we?
I mean, as far as the private sector, us business people, us entrepreneurs, do you think we're mature enough, based on the first point where I said with the clicks, as of right now, to have a total government free and let the private sector even everything out, or control the actual,
Okay.
as our founding fathers kind of intended to be, kind of more of a republic than actual democracy?
No. Well, there's a couple different answers to that. I'm sorry, Stephen. I'm walking all over.
No,
you.
no, it's not. No, I like to listen.
Well,
It's not-
you're the guest, and we're going
Yeah.
to chime in.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a couple different levels of that. Do I think current business owners are capable of that level of self-control and morality? and understand that that they're stewards? No, absolutely not, because they don't. That's not their function.
Right.
Do I think that the people, the hoi polloi, are ready for it? Oh hell no. They want to be ruled, and that's what sucks about now is people want to be told what to do because it's easier than thinking. You talk about living vicariously. That's it right there. That's the scary bit because people want to be thoughtful. I'm not advocating that in any way, shape, or form. I would prefer.
This is what it is. It's the program.
Exactly. I'm a pragmatist. Again, there's another place where Ian and I disagree. I'm a pragmatist. This is the world I live in. I don't have a choice.
Well, and this is why we bring this stuff up. This is all hints to the name Power of Ownership. But the people that's on my side, when I say my side, entrepreneur, they're trying to make a difference and trying to create and have an influence while you create. You have to be opposite that mindset. You got to kind of realize what that mindset is. People want to be people, and when you make your business decisions, you have to make those accordingly. You got to, and that was my problem for a long time. I used to try to bring people on my level.
You can't,
and you can't.
All you can do is you just got to be you and lead, and the right people will follow.
And so you got to realize that a lot of people just don't have it. It's not in them.
That's spark.
You and I go back and forth on etymology and words and that sort of thing. One of my favorite expressions is taking liberty. Taking liberties. You cannot, because we've done this in our country with sending our military to other countries to fight their wars for them and to deliver freedoms that we get here in America. You cannot give freedom away, certainly not at the point of a gun. Liberty has to be taken. You got to step up and you got to say, this is mine. I was born owning myself. I am my property.
Willing to die for it.
And you got to be willing to fight, and you got to be you got to be willing to live for it. Screw dying for it. Dying's easy. You got to live.
I said that in my daily vlogs, All Positive Energy. I said, find something that you're willing to die for and live for it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the definition, like I said, of liberty. You got to liberate yourself.
Liberty has to be taken. It can't be given.
And exactly, and that's what we're. Especially tying back to, my community with the heavily melanated community, is that we're waiting for reparations. We're waiting for liberation. We're waiting to be unoppressed. Doesn't happen like that.
No, because you got to step up and do it.
And,
it's slow. It's slow in the process.
So it is.
You're waiting for it. And I did this analogy on a podcast a couple podcasts ago that we're waiting, knowing that these are cliques. We just separated these teams. All right, I'm a Saints fan, and I'm waiting for the Houston Texans fan to help me win games.
That's true.
It's not going to happen like that.
No, not at all.
So you got to start making plays and start making moves in order for your team to win. And then once you do have, a look at other communities have forced their way up, and now they have a say in the political realm.
Yeah, but see, and this is a place where you and I will not agree on because I don't believe in teams. I don't believe in tribes. I just believe there's only one of us. And
that's what I ultimately believe, but you got to look at the scope of things.
I understand. But again, that goes back to the individual leading. Just be who you are. You don't have to bring other people up. The right people will go with you.
Gotcha.
Because there's some people, you just can't bring up.
Right.
And it's like even King Arthur had all his knights. Right?
Yeah, he did. He had all his knights.
And the point I think on the situation is like, is the world ready to rule themselves? And the answer is no.
Some are.
Yeah, you'll have those people who will always be leaders, and they're born to be leaders,
yes.
like you said. And sometimes there's those people who've worked so hard that they finally get it, and boom, they're going to be leaders too, but they've earned their stripes.
Yes,
right? So
absolutely.
The point I'm trying to make is like there's this whole hierarchy that takes place over time. We go through the cycle, and it's actually written in one of the oldest books on the planet, the Holy Bible, talks about judges, kings, chronicles of like all these different types of rulers over periods of times. And right now we're going from judges back to lords, lords in my opinion. Like we're almost there. Then we're going to go back to like certain leaders ruling over different distinct groups of the population and stuff. And then finally we'll hit that stride, I think.
Well, see, and that's the cycle, because I see people on my side of the universe, or this planet, whatever, who are bemoaning the fact, when will liberty come again? Because they're looking for that libertarian moment. That libertarian moment is not going to happen unless we are extremely oppressed again. And everything's a cycle, and it'll come back, and then they'll lose it again. And it's just going to keep going because that's what happens in nature. And
so speaking of which, do you think that libertarianism is unpopular because of laziness?
Yes.
Yes, and because of the perception that we're a bunch of assholes. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say that.
we might bleep that in the post.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
No, because the perception is that to be a libertarian, your obligation is to step over somebody that is poor and hungry on your way to being successful. That is part of the programming to keep people from being libertarian. It means that you are not obligated to help that fellow if it puts you at risk. Now, if you choose to help that fellow or that woman or whoever, that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And people seem to take libertarian thought as, no, you are prohibited from helping that because it keeps you from going where you want to go. Well, no, that's not true at all. I'm a libertarian. I help who I can.
Right.
I believe that charity is personal, and it's something that is very personal, and it's between me and whoever I help. And,
Right.
you know, I don't step over poor people, but I'm obligated. I'm not obligated. I can if I wish. I'm not obligated to stop, but I do because that's who I am.
I think it's all tied in kind of together as far as the laziness. I think the reason why it's not popular, and especially with my community, the heavily melanated community, the reason why they all automatically go dim. And this is not a political show, but
No, I understand.
But it relates to the mentality as far as being owners and being
Self-aware.
not owners, not being subjects, being taught what to think and being controlled.
Right.
The reason why they all automatically go dim is because they think that these programs and all these handouts will be gone.
Yes, people do not want to lose their fabulous cash and prizes.
So it's the easier route.
And that's not just just heavily melanated people. That's white folks, that's brown folks, that's everybody.
So I think that's why they go with the Democratic Party, is because they're scared to go without these quote unquote things
these things that are enslaving them.
These magical things that I don't know how is it helping you.
It's not. It keeps them dependent.
Right.
You know?
So
that's one that traps.
So, but it's all comfort. We are comfort addicts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we could get out of our comfort zone for a little while, and because my thing is neutrality is let's become neutral. Mm-hmm. I'm not voting for any of you guys until I need this, and this pass.
Yeah.
And whoever signs this, that's what I'm going to vote for.
Yeah.
And hold our vote hostage. That's the only way you're going to see change. Not automatically go to the Dems because they haven't done anything.
I think why isn't libertarianism more popular? We have Windows, Wintel systems. We have Apple with their OS, and then we have Linux. And I'm a Linux fan, which is the libertarianism of OSs, because you rely on other people to come up with stuff, and it may work, it may not work, and it's a lot of work to keep everything up and running, whereas, you can rely on Microsoft to do what they do, but they're a pain in the ass, but people will still stick with them because they're successful and it more or less works. And Apple, same thing. They're successful, it more or less works. That's why people stick with the Democrats and the Republicans, because they're not great, but they more or less work.
Right.
Libertarianism is too much work. I got to go, I got to learn how to figure out how to use GitHub. I got to, I've got to do all of this stuff.
I got to do this myself.
Yeah, I got to do this myself. People don't want to do it themselves.
Right.
And you know what?
I got to think.
In people's defense, it's not just that they have to think. In people's defense, they don't have time to. They don't have time to. They've got,
that's a choice.
That is a choice, absolutely.
They absolutely have time to.
I know.
Yeah, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Well, you cut the binge watching,
Yeah,
the
you
other
do.
stuff. You cut the stuff that is not productive.
Yeah.
And you have ample amount of time.
Look, you only have one shot at existence, and you got to do what makes you happy. And granted, living off of other people that's not the way to be happy. Mm-hmm. But existing in the system that's here and trying to carve out just a little bit of happiness, and yeah, I know people judge people, it's like, well, he's lazy, he just works a 40-hour-a-week job, whatever. You know what he's doing? What he has to do to pay his shit.
Right.
Excuse me, his bills.
Right. I get the, and that's why you're a great guest, because you're opposite. We've had discussions off camera.
Oh yeah.
You're opposite. You used to be in my
I used to be. I used to be.
And, we're total opposite.
Again, I suck at it.
Right. And I'm good at it.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I always did try to go for the gusto, even the opposite, just to oppose what you're saying. In my frame wise is that when I was in the 40-hour, I've had $180,000 a year jobs.
Yeah.
I've made $85,000 straight out of college.
Yeah.
So I've had good salary jobs, quote unquote. But it was always something missing for me. I never did like the control of
the restrictions.
the restrictions, getting all of my ideas, taking them, and then using, and you're actually making a way more money than you're giving me. I hated that.
Honestly,
I hated that.
As a designer, as a mechanical designer, I've tried with several companies to say, look, don't give me a salary.
Mm-hmm.
What I want is a percentage of everything that I've designed that you sell.
Right.
That's not how this particular market works.
Right.
And as much as I want it to, and I think it's the right way to do it, because it takes all the risk off of them, they will not do it because, again, it's that 40-hour work week.
Right.
You get a salary, that's what you get paid. And, I've got to survive in this world, not my ideal. Again, I hate that at some point in my life I decided to become a pragmatist because I was an idealist, but at the same time, idealism doesn't pay the bills. So,
I disagree.
Okay.
I'm
not saying that it can't.
Right. I'm gonna tell you why. Because and this is the perfect, and then we're gonna transition to the last point.
Again,
this is
I'm
the
sorry
perfect.
No, it's cool. I like
this is the
here.
perfect teaching point for the actual podcast, and this is what I'm trying to teach. Remember, never forget what this is. Never forget that you are in control of everything. So let's go deeper. Remember, you could go within yourself and you can create whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And all of this stuff is going to come. The planet has money.
Yes.
The planet has unlimited resources.
Yes, scarcity is a myth.
Just get yours.
Yeah.
And just learn how to do it. And get your working tools together. Like my book. Perfect segue. Learn how to sell. And you always will have money. Always.
It's not about the money, right? It's about, sure, we have to pay our bills, we have to do this, and we have to be able to survive. That's rule number one, surviving, right? Surviving in the world. But that doesn't mean that you can't take this world and make it.
Oh no, absolutely. That's why we're Masons. Is because we wanted to make the world a better place.
Right,
and I do. I believe in making the world a better place, but I can't do that unless. And what Brandon's doing is I think is fantastic. If you're able to be successful, and I have every belief that you will be,
right?
Because you've got the drive, you've got your life set up the way it takes to do it, and I have no doubt, and I applaud what you're doing.
Right.
But I've got to be able to do what I can within my area of influence.
Your due bounds, right?
Do what?
Your due bounds.
Yeah, exactly. Within my due bounds. I got to have money to be able to do it, and this is the way that I can consistently make it instead of being a contractor. And okay, this week I got 10 grand. This week I got squat.
Right. That's the thing about.
I can't help anyone if I don't have the funds.
Gotcha. Give me the last. This is the first time I forgot the last. Give me the last question. I usually have a piece of paper here.
Yeah, sorry. Hang on.
Give me the last question. This is the first time I actually slipped my mind.
For your beliefs and owning your own business.
Okay, yeah, great. That's a great segue.
Absolutely.
Meaning that we kind of laid the foundation, about how the cliques came out, how about the founding fathers, about how what their ideas was, and how our ideas drive us. Do you think that you should intermix the two together when you do your business as an entrepreneur? I know you're. I'm
an ex-entrepreneur.
Ex-entrepreneur, but speaking as as an observer, how would you want this free enterprise set up? Do you want it all driven by certain cliques again, or do you want it like kind of secular?
You're asking me about capitalism.
Exactly.
A little bit.
Secular and all cookie cutter, or should we have?
Go ahead.
Niches.
I think the best way to do it is if you have your own business, you're selling something, you're building something, you have all your things set up, and you're successful. I think it's important not to